Hey everybody, happy Friday. Thank you all. It has been a really interesting week. I have had the chance to participate in the labs leadership meeting this week for the Americas. We have had a number of project milestones, a great success with the Cloud Leopard milestone this week, progressing on Salesforce, both Salesforce. So actually going live with the next tranche and the biggest next tranche of users for Service Cloud in Europe. Just lots of stuff going on. But I don't want to talk about any of that today. Actually, as you can see, I have a couple of our colleagues with us. And we wanted to talk a little bit about some current topics, some current recognition moments, and an opportunity to talk about what those mean to us, both as individuals and as a team. So I'm going to ask for introductions here. Danny, I'm going to start with you. So tell us what role you're in, how long you've been at IDEX, just briefly.
Sure. My name's Danny Merrill. I use he, him pronouns. I am an SAP application analyst, and I've been working at IDEX for just short of 8 years.
Fantastic. And Jasmine, you've actually joined us recently. What's your role and when did you join?
Yes, I am an IT employee experience specialist, and I joined about 4.5 months ago, and my pronouns are she, her.
And we all know, Jasmine, your work already because you're responsible, amongst other things, for our newsletters and on a weekly basis. I know we this week I have already received some comments on the Exadata video. If you haven't seen it, it was my proudest Oracle moment. So please go and watch that. But I wanted to start with a couple of these topics. So this month in June is globally, it's Pride Month. Um, and it's a global recognition of our Pride community. And actually, Danny, the reason I was so excited to have you join is you actually are a founding member of the PrideX community. Is that right? You helped get us started.
Yeah, that is right. Back in, I think, 2017, maybe 2016. Yeah, I was working on the finance business operations team, or as it was then known, the process and solutions team. Yeah, we started back then, and I don't know, sort of the history of the community is that it started as a way to connect with other LGBTQ plus employees, and mostly a way to organize for the annual Pride Parade in Portland. And it started out kind of as that social fun community, and it's kind of more recently shifted into kind of promoting more DEI initiatives in the workplace, and how we can better serve some of our colleagues who maybe don't feel as comfortable. For instance, we've given a lot of trans and non-binary inclusion presentations around the company for our outside sales groups. And I think it's a huge benefit, to especially people who are seeing our customers out in the field. I think it's a great way to make them feel more included when you're putting your pronouns in your signature, you're introducing yourself with your pronouns, you're using more, language that isn't gendered. And yeah, we have our US side of that community, and then we also have our Netherlands side of that community. But currently, we are working to merge them into one global community so we can serve sort of everyone under that umbrella.
Well, and I know, and actually, maybe we should back up for just a moment. It might be impossible for me to fathom, but maybe there are folks that just aren't as in tune or understand Pride, kind of the Pride Month, that it is about the LGBTQ plus community and recognizing, and
Yeah.
that plus is really important because it is a very inclusive community. And actually, I know that because I'm on the Pride X Teams chat channel, and as an ally, and I've seen Brazil actually having a growing Pride community to our Brazil team down there, which is great to see. So I do think there is truly a global opportunity community, and it's great to see how we've grown. Can you just speak just a minute or two more? Because I know, like I got my stickers recently to put on my laptop and to show my pronouns as well, which is in my email signature, and I started doing that a few years ago just to help others be comfortable. We can tell that story in a moment. But what other kind of activities is the Pride X community engaged in? You mentioned the parade, but what else?
Yeah, we do the parade. We also do, I mean, I can't speak to, I'm not familiar with the Netherlands community as much, but I will be once we complete our merge. But here we definitely hit kind of a snag with COVID. We did some virtual events, some trivia nights. But prior to COVID, we had lots of times when like FSRs were in town, we'd have like a meetup where we'd all just do kind of a fun happy hour social thing. I think the last one we did was at Arcadia in Portland, which is a arcade bar. If you've never been, it's amazing.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And they had a blast. They were from out of town, and they had kind of encourage doing a meetup, and we did another one that we try to choose some more kind of queer friendly or queer owned businesses in the Portland area for our meetups. And
Well,
we're kind of starting to encourage our global members to be ambassadors for their own regions, you know?
I think what's so powerful, and I want to shift topics here in a moment, but it's very related, is what I've seen in those opportunities, the meetups, the chat channel I mentioned on Teams, and it's open, right, for any employee, is people telling their story and sharing their voice and their experience and creating a comfort that your story is welcome here as a part of our team, whatever perspective or background you're coming at. And it is a diverse community. And I really have a deep appreciation for what you've done with the Pride X community, and thank you. And I want to come back and talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that representation, but I want to shift for a moment, and I want to talk about Juneteenth, this is a uniquely American recognition and now federal holiday and IDEX holiday, coming up on June 19th, and we're going to celebrate it June 20th because of the way the calendar falls. But it's both a somber reflection and a celebration of how we've progressed, I think. And Jasmine, I want to ask you what it means to you.
Yeah, I actually, when you approached me about talking today, I had to think about it a little bit. We all know what it is, but for those who don't, it marks the day where troops in Texas freed the remainder of the slaves in 1865. But the unfortunate part is a lot of slaves were freed 2 years before that. So we have to think about what that really means. Um, to bring the whole concept of what Black Americans have been through or faced and bring it a little closer to home, my last name is Jackson. And that was a name given to my great grandfather through the person who owned him and the remainder of my family, which we don't know about anymore. And I have to carry that weight with me every day. It's something that I don't want to be aware of, but I see my name everywhere, right? So it marks freedom officially by the government and I think the majority of the population. But for me, I don't believe Black Americans are fully liberated. So I think of Juneteenth a little bit differently and what it means to me is specifically in the workplace. So it's really a progression of where African Americans have really come from 1865. And it's about the challenges we faced since not only then, but obtaining voting rights, making sure we have equal access to healthcare, housing, and jobs. Where do we sit at the table, right? So it's not about holding white folks accountable for what has happened in the past. But it's about that forward momentum for the Black community and to continue to push and push to get our seat at the table. Recognition of Juneteenth, excuse me, doesn't really give the Black community much other than to remind ourselves where we can go from here, and a reminder that there's still work to do. And I know the LGBTQ plus community can relate to that when it comes to pride and what pride means to them. We can't shy away from race-based conversations, especially in our day-to-day jobs, right? Because the numbers don't lie. How many of us are represented here at IDEX? And honestly, to speak about the IT experience, I see faces just like mine every day, which makes me feel like I belong at that table. But again, going back to Juneteenth, have you guys ever heard of a big up?
Big up.
Big up is a patois term in Jamaican language for it's almost like a praise. And I have some Jamaican roots from my great grandmother's side, and she would always say to remind ourselves when Independence Day came around or other celebrations for the Black community to give ourselves that big up and to be proud of where we came and to continue to push for that room for other family members and community members. So
I love it. Well, this is a big up. I love it.
It is a big up.
And I do want to talk. I was very deliberate too in choosing the word to say we're recognizing progress, not success. Like we haven't fully made it there on a number of fronts, but we are progressing. And you've said it. Actually, I think both of you used words around inclusivity and representation. And I want to talk about what that means for us, for all of us, from a representation. How do you think it makes us better as a team, as a company, and as a culture of work? What do you think when you think about representation? I really appreciate Jasmine, and I'll ask you. You said you see others that look like you, and that makes you feel, more comfortable, more empowered, more enabled. What do you think about from a representation perspective? How does that make us better?
Yeah, and I want to say it's not just other Black community members, it's women at the table, right? For myself. But when we talk about inclusivity and representation, I was thinking of something earlier, and I might have said it to my boss Jane before. And I use the reference pretty often, which is funny. But IDEX is all about experimenting, and when you think of an experiment, you have to have a theory, a hypothesis. You have to make observations, then you test the theory, and there's one thing that continues throughout that, and that's having variables. And that's what we have through diverse staff, leadership, the ways we think. So having that variable or those variables is so important to make sure that the voices are heard in the room. The work ethic is there. The different ways we work as individuals based on our culture or the way we've learned is just so important to have in the room for others to feel like they can do the same thing.
Yeah, Danny, again, you've been a champion, obviously, of representation and inclusivity. How do you think that that's helped or will continue to help our team and IDEX?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Jasmine, I love that analogy about the experiment. I think that was brilliant. I think the more diverse we are, I think we kind of understand a more diverse group of consumers, right? When you are a more diverse organization, you're going to consider a more diverse consumer rather than thinking of one vein of that. And I think when you're your authentic self, you're more engaged, you're more productive, you're more in tune with your peers and your coworkers. And I don't know, I remember what it's like growing up and not having representation anywhere and keeping everything inside and not being your true self. And that is just a disservice to everyone. You're not putting your best foot forward. And I think it's important to feel like you have a space to do that, and it's safe to do that, and it's celebrated.
And I think seeing the examples of others and yourselves as examples of champions for progress, I think is really important. I'm an admittedly older, late 40s, right? I can see 50 staring me in the face. Uh, Cis white guy. This is my experience growing up. I have biracial children. My wife's Filipino, and so I also have an experience through that perspective as well. Um, and each of them are going to have their own experiences growing up, and what amazes me is how much I actually learn from them on a constant basis. So I think, Danny, I'm going to share that story I shared with you earlier about, the reason I started putting pronouns in my email signature several years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago now, actually was my daughter, my then teenage-year-old daughter. And I admit, because growing up, this was not I'd never thought about it, frankly. And I said, I'm not sure I understand. Like, why is this a thing? And she said, Dad, do you like being called Ken or Kenneth? And I said, well, no, Ken. Kenneth is my legal name, but Ken. And she said, okay, so if you expect people to respect your choice as to what to call you, why wouldn't you respect theirs? And that was a mind-blowing moment for me. I was like, oh my God, you're absolutely right. And I think at the time she was like 14. I was like, there you go. I learned from that moment. And, Danny, you shared with me the other examples. People get married, they change their name, and we expect to respect that. There's just so many, we use they as an individual pronoun all the time when we're talking about, they left their phone in the car. There's just such a simple mark of respect that we can offer to our colleagues, to people that this is important to, that it was a real learning for me. And the fact that I can learn from my daughter, right, and evolve is just, it's great. And I've shared that story with her too, so she knows that I brag on her on that.
Ken, if you don't mind that I add, even name pronunciation has
Yes.
something we really need to focus on. I often get my name mispronounced, and part of that is I also have German roots, and they say Yasmin in German, and that's okay, but I go by Jasmine, and I want to make sure that that's understood by my colleagues and they're spelling my name right. So it's always important to correct someone.
That little bit of kindness that we can bring into our culture and respect for others goes so far in welcoming people to bring their whole selves. Danny, you said that. And if you can't bring your whole self to the workplace, you can't do your best work. And if we look at our customers, and I mean our customers, and I rarely refer to other IDEX as our customers, but our colleagues, more than 50% of the organization is female, to your point, Jasmine. We have a very diverse customer set in the veterinary and companion animal space. If we're not diverse in our experience and thinking as a team, we are not going to anticipate and meet them where they are to provide the solutions that they need, not as well as we could. And that's why this topic is so important to me. And we've talked about diversity of experience, background, context as a measure that we look at both as a company, but certainly as an IT function. And, again, I really appreciate both of you. Do you have any final thoughts on like what the work is that we have ahead of us and how we approach it, how you're thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I'd love to say how I love that Juneteenth and Pride are in the same month, just because Pride has its roots as coming from the Stonewall riots, which were initiated by two trans women of color. So I think it's kind of a beautiful month and a marriage of those two things, started this movement that's, now celebrating. And just like Jasmine said, we are celebrating progress, definitely not the end of the road. And I think to get there as a company, I think it starts with education. I think lots of people, coming from, given our presentation on trans and non-binary inclusivity, it's really clear that lots of people are unaware of the difference between sex and gender. Those are two completely different things. And I think that from an educational perspective, we need to just learn and grow, and we need to admit that maybe we don't know, and we're willing to change and adapt on the fly. I think we're an innovative company and we're capable of change all the time. I think we need to put that forth with our DEI efforts and really just reach out and see what's working for other people, what's the best way to get everyone educated, and how do we make it a part of everyone's daily life here.
Danny, that's great. Jasmine, what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
absolutely echo everything you just said. But also just telling the stories. We don't know what we don't know, but we have to be willing to listen to learn and not just listen to respond. I think what's really important is the more we talk, the more we learn about each other outside of our day-to-day responsibilities, the more we become an inclusive environment. But it can include our work responsibilities. You never know what you're going to learn from someone else. So just continue to share as IDEXers because that's the best thing we can do.
Well, and that's the thing I brought up about the Pride X Teams channel, and again, that's open for folks. They can reach out to you, Danny, if they need any instructions on how to get there. I guess it's featured on the Introdex site, of course, this month. But telling stories, to your point, Jasmine, about ourselves, our perspectives, our context, it sets the example for others that might be hesitating to tell their own story for some reason, right? And there could be very good reasons, but being vulnerable enough, brave enough, willing to tell those stories creates a space that's safe for folks to share their own. And I think that that's really powerful. And I really, again, appreciate both of your voices in the conversation. Thanks to you both. So to wrap up this week, again, lots going on. Certainly, as I look ahead to next week, some more conversations around, I'm focused on machine learning and AI, some really good stuff for us to advance, our project portfolio, et cetera. We have those milestones, et cetera. But this weekend I have no idea what it's going to be like. It's been warm and summery here most days, but we're still in that part of Maine where when the sun goes down, it drops 10 degrees and, which I enjoy, but I'm hoping to get outside and do some things. We do actually have a federal holiday here in the U.S. on Monday, as I mentioned, of course, to celebrate Juneteenth. So we have a long weekend here in the U.S. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you get a chance to have some downtime, whether it's the long weekend or another, or just the regular. Get outside, enjoy your loved ones, enjoy your friends and family. As always, if there's any question on your mind, we just sat this week and planned our upcoming all hands, and we have a fantastic guest speaker in Caroline Rosendahl, who's our head of corporate responsibility, coming in to speak with us. Some good conversation on cloud leopard and some of the milestones that I mentioned before. So lots there. But if there's any questions burning that you don't want to wait till the all hands, you know that you can always reach out. I'm only a Teams call away, and I always love hearing from you. Thanks so much for all that you're doing. Thanks to Jasmine and Danny for joining me for this week's conversation, and I'll talk to you next week.